Nagbabalik po muli ang inyong lingkod at nagbabalita ng mga balitang dapat nating malaman dito sa ating bansa. Ito ang balitang pambansa. Ating ngang matutunghayan sa channel nito kung ano ang nangyayari sa loob ng ating gobyerno at syempre tumutulong na rin sa ating mga mamamayan na malaman ang katotohanan dahil mayroon tayong karapatan na malaman ang tunay na nangyayari sa ating bansa. Ngunit bago natin panoorin ang balita, huwag niyo pong kakalimutan na mag-subscribe sa ating channel at pindutin ang notification bell para lagi kang maging updated sa ating mga bagong videos na ina-upload araw-araw. At sa ating mga solid viewers naman dyan ay maraming salamat naman po sa walang sawang pagsuporta. At syempre, huwag din pong kakalimutang mag-iwan ng like at i-share ang ating mga videos. At kung mayroon ka naman pang opinion, ang ating comment section ay bukas para sa inyong mga hinaing. Ito na nga mga kaibigan, ating panoorin ang buong video. Salamat po muli and God bless!
Duterte, idadagdag ho natin dyan. Ayaw ho natin pangunahan. Siyempre, sumusunod ho tayo sa kagustuhan ni Tatay Digong. Kasi naniniwala ho tayo na yung si Tatay Dig, siya lang ho ang merong sinserong intensyon na mapabuti ang kalagayan ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Heto ho, rekta ho tayo dito sa balita. Balita ng News 5 na kung saan. Papasukin ho natin itong si Ma'am Ruth Cabal. Game!
Philippine National Police na nakatakdang peace rally ng Iglesia ni Cristo sa January 13. Ayon kay PNP spokesperson, Police Brigadier General Jean Fajardo, nagsagawa ng coordination meeting ang National Capital Region Police Office o NCRPO at mga kinatawan ng INC. Gaganapin ang rally nationwide raw. Dito sa NCR, isasagawa ito sa Liwasang Bonifacio sa Maynila. Sa mga Freedom Park at Sports Complex naman gaganapin ang rally sa ibang rehiyon.
Yung final location and oras po, this will be a simultaneous nationwide peace rally.
Pwede naman na itong ituloy sa...
Etong si Jean Fajardo, ano ho ito isa ho ito sa mga talagang umawalang ya, nagwalang ya sa KOJC noong kinubkub ho nila yung KOJC compound. Isa ho yan sa pinakawalang yang naging leader ng PNP. Sa bagay, no? Pagka nga namang natapalan ng kung ano-ano yung mga mata nyo, tenga nyo, kahit mali, kahit nabaluktot, talagang tutuwirin nyo. Yan hong ginawa nila doon sa KOJC compound. Napakarami hong karapatang nalabag doon sa lugar na yon. Sa pangunguna ho yan, netong si Romel Marbil, ang amo niyan, at ang itong tagapagsalita nilang walang hiya na si Jean Fajardo. Tuloy.
Rally po ng INC, and the PNP is ready to provide the necessary police assistance po doon po sa gagawin po nilang
parang yun, nag-post ka doon parang napapalunok ka na rin ba, madam? Nag-o-overtime ka na rin ba ngayon, madam? Ito mukhang ang lalim ng eyebags mo, madam. Parang nag-o-overtime ho ata kayo.
Lawakang aktibidad po. So, tuloy-tuloy na po ito.
Ayun na nga mga kababayan, tuloy-tuloy na daw ho ang paghahanda ng PNP dyan sa gaganapin na nationwide peace rally ng mga kababayan natin dyan sa INC. Tanungin nga ho natin yung isang kasama natin kung dadalo siya dyan. Kung dadalo siya dyan, sasamahan ho natin yung ating isang kasama na membro ng INC at talagang magtatandem na lang ho kami. Oy, dadalo ka ba ha? Dadalo ka ba? Meron ho tayong kasamang membro ng INC. Tingnan ho natin, kausapin ho natin siya kung dadalo siya. Kung sakaling dadalo siya, natural, sasama na ho tayo sa kanya. Number 55 sa Balota, Atty. Vic Rodriguez, Congressman Rodante Marcoleta. Paikot-ikot lang ho yan para matatak sa kaisipan ng ating mga kababayan, ng ating mga kandidato sa 2025 midterm election. Ito ho, tuloy ho natin ang pakinggan ho natin ang mga punto de vista nitong si Atty. Salvador Panelo kaugnay dyan sa pagkakatanggal bilang miyembro ng National Security Council nitong si Vice President Sara Duterte at itong si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Pakinggan ho natin ito mga kababayan. Meto na ho mga kababayan. Umpisa na ho natin to kay Atty. Salvador Panelo. Okay?
Good morning, Attorney Sal.
Good morning, Karen.
And welcome back at the forefront.
Thank you.
So let's first start with Executive Order 81. Do you believe it's claimed that it is meant to reorganize and revamp the National Security Council?
It's pure and simple politics, dirty politics of that. Because if you look at the history of the National Security Council, for 75 years, the composition remained constant. The Vice President was there, and for 27 years, all living presidents were also members of the National Security Council. And then suddenly, this so-called reorganization executive order. So, what's the reason for that? There is only one reason: politics. They want them out, the two Dutertes. It's all geared towards 2028. Now, the two other living presidents were included to deodorize, para hindi halata. To make it appear na they're not targeting BP Sara as well as the former President Duterte.
And former President Arroyo, in the early parts of after President Bongbong Marcos won the elections, was demoted at some point from being deputy speaker to just, I think, from being a deputy majority.
Senior deputy
there to just deputy, and
deputy,
then
she was
later on
removed.
just ordinary congresswoman. Do you think that this also has something to do with former President Arroyo not being an ally of the administration?
Oh, definitely. We know for a fact that the former President Arroyo is close political ally of BP Sara.
Does she remain to be an ally
she
of
is.
Vice President
Definitely
Sara up
she
to
is.
now?
Until now, yes.
But according to the records, the NSC met for the first time in February 2023 and has not met since then. So Vice President Sara Duterte, according to the records, did not attend that NSC meeting. So do you think
Was she invited? Or was she not?
as early as that time, was there already a rift that would cause the Vice President to not be invited in the National Security Council?
I don't know that particular month. What I know is that even the previous Vice President, despite the fact that they were not politically allied, she was invited and attended the July 2016 National Security Council with the presence of 4 living presidents: Arroyo, Estrada, Ramos, and there were 4 of them, and Aquino.
So it's really part of tradition to have former presidents be part of the National Security Council, regardless of the alliance between the shifting administration.
Not only tradition, it's part of the executive order created originally. That was the base for that was Commonwealth Act 330, and Quirino in 1952 created the National Security Council, and then in 1986, President Cory reestablished that National Security Council with the same composition: members of the cabinet, vice president, and other persons designated by her. And then it was incorporated in the Administrative Code of 1987. In 1992, the former President Arroyo reestablished it. And again, the Vice President was included, as well as the living president.
So in your opinion, as a lawyer, this Executive Order 81, is there any flaw from a constitutional standpoint to the way it was reorganized to remove former presidents as members of the council?
There is no dispute or quarrel about the president has the discretion, because that's
his
an
prerogative.
executive order. It is his right. The problem is, to my mind, it was ill-advised, because you need the insights of the vice president, you need the insights of the living presidents. They are well-equipped, they have experience, they know their subject. Eh, bakit mo patanggalin? Yung sinasabi nila, I'm amused by the rationale of this one cabinet member saying that we're doing this because we want to what?
Revamp.
Revamp. No, they're revamping it because they want to put more strength in the composition. And they said, and he was saying that we've been reorganizing this. He's forgetting that, yes, that has been reorganized, but they never removed the vice president and the living presidents.
Well, it was Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin that also said that Vice President Sara is no longer relevant to the responsibilities of an NSC member.
Bakit naman?
Bakit naman?
Ba't niya? He didn't explain why. Why can't she not?
Ang problema ko kasi dito kay Lucas Bersamin, umakyat na rin ho sa utak niya ang pagiging executive secretary, ang pagiging lethal president niya, ika nga, no? Baka nakalimutan ho nitong si Bersamin na pangalawa ho sa pinakamataas na opisyal ng ating bansa, itong si VP Sara. At anumang oras, kung anumang mangyari dito kay Bangag, dito kay Marcos Jr., si VP ang dapat na pumalit sa kanya. At kung hindi siya kasama sa National Security Council, at least kung kasama itong si VP Sara at naririnig niya kung anong napag-uusapan dyan, napagmimitingan dyan, aware ho siya sa mga kinaharap na problema o issue o yung mga bagay na hindi dapat na malaman ng mga ordinaryong Pilipino na pinag-uusapan dyan sa council na yan. Tinanggal ho itong si BP siguro dahil dahil daw ho doon sa doon sa sinabi niya na threat dito kay Marcos Jr. Mga kalokohan ho talaga nitong administrasyon na to. Oo.
Not be relevant. She is the second highest official of the land. At any time she succeeds to the presidency, she has to be there. She needs to be there.
So in the past, when you were Chief Presidential Legal Counsel, what did you see were some of the relevant roles of the NSC when it comes to national security?
You need people who have wisdom, experience relative to national security. And these people, members of the cabinet and other high-profile personalities that the president trusts to have such wisdom, are invited. Kailangan nila yun eh. They need it.
What about the threat that Vice President Sara made against President Bongbong Marcos, First Lady Lisa, and Speaker Martin Romualdez, the threat from the grave, meaning if something happened to her that she already talked to an assassin, do you consider that to be a threat to national security, which could be a consideration as to why she was removed from the council?
As you say, Karen, that it's a threat from the grave, so there was no threat. How can you make a threat inside the grave? That was never a threat. I have already explained that many times over. It was a conditional threat, if it could be called a threat. I think you should take it in context. The vice president knew that there was a threat in her life. And she believed that the only people that could do that to end her life would be her political enemies.
So considering that there is that rift where even the vice president would consider the president as her political enemy, you don't think that there's a reason for her removal in the National Security Council on that ground where there's no, basically there's this conflict between the two?
National security should always go beyond the personal differences of the members of the National Security Council, because you're talking about the security of your country. Whether I don't like you, you don't like me, we have to be together and plan to secure our country from forces external or internal that wants to overthrow or destroy our land.
And what about former President Duterte making calls to the military to withdraw their support? I think there were statements by former President Duterte before saying that they should withdraw their support, their military support to President Bongbong Marcos. Do you consider this to be a potential threat to national security, or would this fall under any offense under the revised penal code, like inciting to sedition?
For one, Karen, it is predicated on the wrong premise. He never asked the military to withdraw support. In fact, he was saying that I do not like coup. Ayaw ko yan. I don't want bloody what he was asking the military is to be realistic, as well as they should know exactly their duty under the Constitution, which is very clearly provided that they are the protector of the people. So if that is your duty, you have to see whether your country is under threat even by its own government. And if that is so, then it is your duty to protect the people from this government created by the same people.
So there was no call for withdrawal of
Definitely
military
not.
support.
In fact, he was the one stopping the military from doing it.
And in your opinion, so you said that here, former President Estrada and former President Arroyo were just collateral damage to desensitize
Yes,
the removal of the
to give the
Dutertes.
rise,
To
the
the
purging
rise.
of the two father and son tandem, father and daughter tandem.
Based on this reorganization, who do you think would be replacing those former presidents and the vice president in terms of the NSC membership? Because you suddenly have, like 4 people gone from the NSC.
Well, I saw the list. They have put in chairman even of committees in Congress, in the Senate, as well as in the House. Committee chairman. Nandun sila lahat eh. Yung mga anti-Duterte lahat. It's a good thing.
You mean members of Congress?
Yeah.
Is that usual, considering that this should be an executive council,
Oh,
meaning people from the
exactly.
executive?
But akin okay lang yun. Kasi security ang pinag-uusapan. If you're talking of security, yung pinagkakatiwala mo, those who you trust and those who have the wisdom to share with you on the security planning, kailangan sama mo yan. Pero this time, talagang sinama nila lahat yung mga anti-Duterte forces doon.
And some are speculating
Dapat itong si Franz Castro, isama na rin nila dyan sa National Security Council na yan. So tingnan natin yung mga makakaliwang grupo, kagaya ni Franz Castro, yang si Raul Manuel, yung mga sila sa Toco Campo, yan ang isama nila dyan sa National Security Council. Yari lamang tinanggal nyo yung mga individual na talagang nakikita ng ating mga kababayan na sila talaga ang merong malasakit dito sa bansa na to. Ilagay nyo na yung mga falsipikadong kagaya ni Franz Castro. Ganun lang.
that the reason why former President Duterte was also removed from the council was because President Bongbong Marcos was not invited to the inauguration of President Trump, whereas former President Duterte was invited to the inauguration of Trump. Would you know if former President Duterte was really invited to Trump's inauguration this January?
No, I don't think he was invited.
So it's nothing like a personal reason.
It's a petty reason.
Okay. And what's your take on calls to abolish the NTF-LCAC? NTF-LCAC. May calls ba to abolish Congress? So we'll talk about that as a separate question.
I'm calling for that.
Your call. Ikaw yung...
Revolutionary
Ikaw
government.
pala yun. Okay. But what about calls to abolish NTF-LCAC? Do you think this has anything to do with also the removal of...
Number 58, Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, huwag niyong kalimutan. Attorney Vic.
Maybe Vice President Sara.
By the way.
Well, this is based on reports that there are some calls to abolish NTF-LCAC, and some are saying that this is related to this unholy alliance between the administration and the left groups, including the party lists from the left.
The NTF-LCAC is very effective in dismantling the communist apparatus. So it should not
And
be
this was
abolished.
established during the time of President
Yes.
Duterte,
And it
right?
was continued by, and to his credit, he continued with the NTF-LCAC.
Yes. But do you think this has anything to do with potentially abolishing that NTF-LCAC with this new composition of the NSC?
I don't think so. I think that would be another ill advice if he removes or abolish it.
So this reorganization, in your opinion, is really purely political or dirty politics, as you mentioned.
Oh, yes.
But do you think that this would affect the chances of the Duterte allies from being re-elected in the upcoming elections or even at the local positions, that those who support former President Duterte or Vice President Sara would be affected in terms of their ability to be elected in the upcoming elections?
To my mind, it has nothing to do. Election of the...
So the timing is not really...
Election of members of Congress, senators, has definitely nothing to do with that. The election, the outcome of the election will depend on the candidates' organization, their name recall, their face recall, and the money.
Even at the local
Yes,
level.
because I've been advocating for education of the electorate. Because right now, majority of the voters are not formally educated. That's why they're vulnerable to many factors. They can be bribed, they can be easily influenced, pwede silang maswindle, mabola. Kaya look at the kind of people we are electing. But if you are educated, you have a college degree, I don't think you'll be vote for this kind of people.
Well, based on recent surveys, two of former President's allies have a chance of getting seats in Senate.
Yes.
But they're not rating as highly. Formerly, when President Duterte was still president, when he was endorsing, or even in the 2022 elections when he was finishing his term as president. I think we have here one of the surveys where we can see that Senator Bato de la Rosa is on the borderline, and Bongo is up there high. But do you think that the endorsing power of former President Duterte is waning, given the current political landscape?
No, it's not, it doesn't, I don't think the endorsement has something to do with it. Maybe a little, but again, I will repeat, the factors would be money, your organization, and your name recall and face recall. You must remember that there are so many re-electionists and those who want to get back, to go back to the Senate. Eh, dati nang kilala ito. They have already organizations. Samantalang yung mga i-endorse ni Presidente, wala. Relatively unknown. They're only...
Totoo ho yan mga kababayan, kaya talagang napakatindi ho ng midterm election. Kaya ngayon pa lang mga kababayan, pinapakita na ho natin dyan yung mga kandidato na itinaas ng kamay nitong si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte, Congressman Rodante Marcoleta, nandyan na ho yan mga kababayan. Sino pa ba? Itong si Gov. Chavi. Talagang ilinatag na ho natin lahat dyan. Tandaan nyo na lang ho yung numero para pagka nakaharap na kayo sa inyong mga balota, hindi nyo ho makalimutan yung number 10, itong si Attorney Jimmy Bondok.
True in the, what you may call an opposition that has the capacity to win. Who? Chavit Singson.
Do you think Chavit Singson
He has the
has,
money, he has the name recall, he has the face recall, and he has the organization. If he uses his money, he will win. And then you have Pastor Apollo Kibuloy.
Yung,
He too has those
yun sa
assets,
52.
money, name recall, face recall, and organization. Ito, dalawang ito pwede yan, if they know how to.
And are they considered allies of the president, you think?
Oh, definitely. Of the former president.
Of former President Duterte, yes. And based on the political landscape right now, do you see that there are any other reorganizations that may happen in the government? So right now you have NSC, but do you think there are any other potential reorganizations based on your experience as Chief Presidential Legal Counsel?
Well, none that I know of. What is dangerous is we might have a reorganization of governments.
On what basis?
Well, we have the huge rally January 13. Many
That
people,
was called for by the
Iglesia
Iglesia
ni Cristo, which I'm supporting because the call is very sensible. Because the President, Marcos Jr., has called out to stop the impeachment because if, according to him, and he is very correct, it will not benefit any Filipino. That's why the Iglesia ni Cristo is calling to support the President's call. And we support
Former
that.
President Duterte's call, or current President Marcos's
So
call.
all of us are supporting that because impeachment is such a divisive process that will only create schism among us. So, tigilan nila yan.
So can you clarify, the call of INC to stop the impeachment is to support President Marcos's call,
Yes.
not to have impeachment? Okay. So it's not former President Duterte's call to stop the impeachment.
No.
So it's really,
The rally is in support of Marcos' call to stop the impeachment. It effectively, of course, supports Vice Presidente Sara.
yes. But in your opinion, as a lawyer, do you think there's really time to even hear the impeachment case? There's rumors that there's going to be a fourth impeachment that will be filed soon. But is there enough time for Congress, one, to examine the impeachment complaints and then for this to go to Senate?
Congress can always do what it wants to do. They have the power. They have the resources. But you know, even assuming that impeachment will not push through, the mere fact of filing such impeachment is already an effective black propaganda tool against the Vice President. Sinira mo na siya.
Do you think it's effective in this case? Kasi
Di ba?
Pinoy is also like underdogs, so
Yeah, but-
feeling nila inaapi, baka the sympathy would also
If
go
you
to
will
the
look
Vice
at the
President.
survey, tinatamaan siya. Both of them. Both of them.
Both the
Parehong
President and the
bumababa
Vice
eh.
President.
Talagang naapektuhan sila para-pareho.
But should this go to Senate, do you think Vice President Sara will finish the trial, or is resignation an option?
I don't think resignation is an option. The question would be, will she be convicted, assuming that tuloy-tuloy nila yan? Sinasabi nila, mahirap because of the senators. I'm always thinking of the Corona impeachment eh. Di ba you're part of that?
Yes, I was in the defense.
Tinan mo, impeachment wala namang basis yun. Pero suddenly na-convict
Yeah.
because of, according to one senator, they were given the wherewithal.
Well, if you look at the timing of all the events, the budget for 2025 was just passed recently, and it was controversial. I think there are some party-less groups that are still opposing the approval of the budget because of several questionable items. Do you think that some of the items there will be used for the 2025 elections and also for a potential impeachment to get the sufficient votes in Congress and in Senate?
Definitely. Yun lang akap eh. That's great for the election, di ba? How much? The members of Congress will receive 26 billion, and then the senators 6 billion. Malaking pera yun for election purposes.
So when you say that kanina, the factors that would affect the elections, yung money,
Oh, yes.
do you think manggagaling yun sa...
Yes, dun yung...
Okay, but Secretary Sal, what would you say is when you say that the removal of VP Sara and the other former presidents was ill-advised, so going back to the National Security Council, the former President Duterte and Vice President Sara have also been perceived as favoring China or allies of China. And Philippines, one of our perennial issues in the past years is really this territorial dispute with China. Do you think that was also a consideration in terms of this new composition of the National Security
Well,
Council?
if that was the perception of the present dispensation, that will be part of it. But it's not true that they are pro-China. The very reason why President Duterte befriended China was because he could not enforce the arbitral ruling. And nobody in this world has the might to enforce it. No country wants to enforce it. So sabi ni Presidente Duterte, since we cannot enforce this, kaibiganin na lang natin because the West Philippine Sea is not the end all and be all of this problem, of our relationship. There are so many aspects of human endeavor that we can use, like trade relations with them, the sharing of intelligence. Ang daming pwede, kaya doon siya nag-concentrate.
Okay, and in the past, with the former NSC, wala bang instances where the president did not approve of or rejected advice that would beef up our opposition to China's aggression in the West Philippine Sea?
I'm not privy to the to the thinking of the president nor with his advisors, Nicola.
So, right now, with Vice President Sara no longer being a cabinet member in terms of having a position in the Department of Education and no longer being part of the National Security Council, where do you think should she concentrate her efforts on as a vice president to be relevant to the country?
Well, right now she's still relevant because she established many offices of the vice president so that people will have access to her office. Those who are having difficulty getting into departments that provide services, nandun siya.
And you think the budget issue is not a problem, considering her budget, at least what she asked for, was not fully given?
Well, as she said, I can go without. Diba?
And politically, in 2028, do you think that Vice President Sara will run for president?
If they do not disqualify her, if they do not convict her, oh, definitely, it's game over.
You think she has a good chance of winning?
Not only game over nga eh.
In your opinion, I saw the recent presidential surveys, the one that came out in December, and currently Vice President Sara is tied with Senator Raffy Tulfo in terms of having preferential votes potentially as a 2028 presidential candidate. So you think malayo na si Vice President Sara?
Malayo ang tingin. Look at, tinan mo yung previous senatorial elections. Ang number one sa survey, si Raffy. Diba? Robin Padilla, nandun sa huling-huli. Nobody even believed that he would win. And I was telling him, you will top the senatorial post. Talo mo kami lahat. Kasi ang hindi nakikita ng tao sa'yo, yung mga kumukontra sa'yo. One, you have the common sense. Number two, you're honest. You have the charisma. And you're very humble. Plus the fact you're not corrupt. Maniwala ka, you're number one. When the election results came, yung number one, wala siyang sinabi. Because Robin got 28 million votes. Halos malapit na kila Presidente Marcos Jr. at kay Inday Sara. Pero si Raffy, 5 million votes ang layo niya kay Robin. Kung 5 million ang layo niya kay Robin, gaano ba kalayo ang boto niya kay Inday Sara? Di 7+.
But do you think that also at that time, well, Robin, apart from being an actor very well known all over the Philippines, also benefited from the former President Duterte at the time when he was finishing his term, had very high approval ratings and had really high endorsing power as well?
Hindi rin eh. You know why? Kasi that was ending of his term. Alam mo, if you're running in the midterms, ang endorsement ng presidente napakalakas. You know why? Because the president will have 3 years more. In control siya. So all the mayors, the governors, all the local government officials will toe the line. Pag sinabi niya, tulungan mo yan. May problema ka sa akin pag hindi. Midterm yun. Nung tumakbo si Robin, end of President Duterte na yun.
Pero taas pa rin ang approval rating ni
kahit pa
President
mataas.
Duterte at that time. Pero, I think he broke a record by ending with 80+%.
Hindi ka susundin pag kahit na presidente ka. It happened to me.
Because he also
It
endorsed you.
happened to me. Hindi lang siya nag-endorse sa akin, pati si Presidente Arroyo. Dinala ko sa lahat ng mga bayan.
Pero hindi ka naman actor.
Exactly. Yun
But
ang-
yeah,
yun ang
so that's
sinasabi ko.
the name
The name
recognition
recall,
there.
the face recall, the organization, and the money. Yung money, wala siya noon. But you know, just like Duterte, when he ran, he had no money. Pag gusto ka ng tao, talagang they will spend for you.
And do you think that still applies with Vice President Sara after having undergone all of the events last year where there was a budget hearing both for DepEd and OVP regarding the confidential funds, and now all of these impeachment complaints? Do you think she will come out unscathed by all of these issues?
She will survive, and she will win the presidency on the assumption that she is not disqualified by reason of conviction in the impeachment trial.
And you think resignation is still out of the table? Because
I
that
don't
seems to
think-
be a more sensible strategy. She can resign and not be disqualified.
No, I don't think she will. Palaban nito eh. Hindi ito umuurong sa labanan. Sabi nga eh, hindi pa sila nakakahanap ng kalaban na kagaya ko. I agree.
And former President Duterte will be part of her legal team should
yes,
this impeachment
definitely.
trial push
Yes.
through. And then, Attorney Sal, lastly, in the past, people were also expecting one of the members of the Duterte family, one of the sons, to
Yeah.
also run for Senate in 2025. What changed?
Wala naman, haka-haka lang yun eh.
Hindi talaga sa
That was
kanila
only
nanggaling.
speculation.
Okay, so there was really no
Speculation lang yun.
intention to run
Wala.
for Senate. But in 2028, would they consider running?